jump into ban pick without any further delay. Let me quickly send it over to the...
Thank you, Dave. Indeed, draft for game number 4. Welcome back, humans and pets, as Dave would like to say. But finally, we're going to be seeing some Monkey coming into the game, and Olaf is going to be banned once again. Omega Esports, as rightly said by Xcandro earlier, Zed is once again off the table for Nexplay. They're going to be going for that ban. But Wukong being picked so early on could allow Nexplay to find some good counter picks to make sure that Wukong doesn't have that much impact.
Yeah, I mean, Wukong has the flexibility to go between Baron lane and Dragon lane, and the jungle, of course. So obviously, we're not entirely sure where Olaf, the Wukong is going. I would say, for the most part, it's more categorically seen in the jungle lane, rather. But it can go to Baron in the right situations. There are certain matchups that I think it works in. I'm interested that no one has picked Kennen as of yet. I do genuinely believe Kennen is still relatively strong. His ultimate is kind of irreplaceable in the sense that you don't get many ultimates like it in the game in terms of team-wide impact. I do think people have been turned off playing him due to the nerfs, clearly, but I do think Kennen is still relatively strong. And I think, maybe that's something that we might see come down further in the line when it comes to the all-round ban pick scenario. The Brawl, a very, very strong support, still left available, as is the Alistair. No, Alistair has been used by both teams, sorry. But Brawl definitely strong to pick here. I wonder which marksman he still has left to pair with it. The Jhin is up. Jhin Braum is not a particularly strong combination in lane, but later into the game, the Jhin Braum is perfectly fine. Plus, Braum is a good counter into Misfortune because the Unbreakable is able to block the majority of the bullet time, soak the damage up. Obviously, Braum receives 40% less damage from projectiles that hit his Unbreakable, so he's going to be able to soak that damage from the Misfortune in these teamfight scenarios. Corki being hovered here by Nexplay, that would be a Corki mid. There are still things like the Twisted Fate available, which was just banned on, just buffed on the previous patch 2. And the Jarvan, as you talked about, Maxi, you said you wanted to see some Jarvan. It's a jungler that isn't exactly S tier, but definitely has seen an increase in priority since those buffs. And we're already looking at a relatively scary level 5 composition coming out from Nexplay Esports.
They can be very... okay, well, see, just scrap that. Singe for the win. Singe is OP, guys. Play it in ranked if you want. It's triple S tier. So you're going to want to play that off one. Okay, so yeah, Singe is indeed going to be picked up with this one. But unfortunately, compared to what we had earlier, we had for the side of Omega Esports, Gray, some big follow-up kind of characters. Here you have this Singe that I want to see something that can potentially follow up on the front line with that Singe to assist him in big ways. So Singed, okay, fair enough, but now you need something extra to add on top of that, some icing on top of the cake to make that Singe even more worthwhile. But now going back to Omega Esports, they're hovering up this Orianna, which is another strong pick. And you mentioned it earlier, Scandal, because I keep going back to what you say because it's so on point. They just keep on taking some lower tier picks and some strong picks, but here they're just going for all out big picks, some picks that are just reliable in every single lane. Sure, Jhin, Braum, I'm not too fan of the composition. Ashe was available also. They could have gone for that. Also, Jinx is also somewhat pretty strong with a Braum, even though you would prefer to go for Lulu Jinx. But they go for the Garen anyways, regardless, with the Orianna. So that's going to be the Orianna Wukong Wombo combo. They're going to get CC for days. But now on the other side, I said I wanted to see some follow-up behind that Singe to go for the extra damage and burst down whoever that Singe is able to just chuck behind his back. And Graves could indeed do that. So they're somewhat stealing the composition of Omega Esports last game, but now we have to see if they can execute it as well.
I'm not entirely convinced by this Nexplay draft. The reason being is you don't really have much CC to combine with the Misfortune bullet time. One of the things that makes Misfortune's bullet time really strong is if you combine it with some hard CC. I'm very interested that we have yet to see a Malphite, for instance. Like Malphite is a top lane pick that I thought we would, or Baron lane pick that I thought we would see more of during this series, but we haven't yet seen that combination come out from Nexplay. I feel like they're really going to struggle to get a good bullet time application here. However, they have got good single target damage. Obviously, Singe can look to isolate someone, and they can look to blow them up relatively quickly. But the Wombo combo teamfight potential of Omega is much stronger. Their level 5 is really strong with the Wukong, Orianna, Braum, and Jhin ultimates. And again, I'm coming out of this slightly favoring Omega Esports from the draft. I think the scaling is good from Nexplay, but I don't think they can compete in early team fights compared to what Omega are bringing to the table. Omega are just building more cohesive drafts, in my opinion, and I don't think Nexplay are doing the same. And that's why I'm a little worried about this Nexplay draft. Now, they've got lane dominance with the MF Janna. They can look to be aggressive versus the Jhin Braum. Braum struggles generally into enchanters, but I just have this sinking feeling that when it comes to that first dragon in the game again, if indeed we get another 5-man fiesta at the Dragon Pit, it's going to be Omega that have the better comp to execute on.
Yeah, especially if they get themselves to level 5 by that point, is going to be really favoring the side of Omega Esports. But I do like, though, if I want to say something positive on Nexplay Esports, we have to say something positive eventually for them. I do like this Janna pickup overall. I think it's pretty strong to be able to deal with a potential dive coming on through from the Garen, from the Braum, and also that Wukong on his ultimate for the Cyclone. So I think that Janna here is going to be peeling really heavily for the rest of their team. But also the thing is that they got some healing, they got some engaged potential with the Graves and the Singe together. So as you mentioned, and rightly so, like, the synergy of all these characters together aren't great when you're looking at Omega Esports. You see that combo potential, you see what they can do in these late game team fights, and it just like goes together like a rightly done puzzle. So now we'll have to see. I personally fully agree also that Omega Esports, I think they have a little bit of a better edge at no matter what stage of the game. So now we're going to be looking at Nexplay. Can they execute this Siege rotation properly, just like it happened earlier for Omega Esports? If they can do so and, like, you know, proxy the wave, go for an invade and play pretty aggressively, that's good. But unfortunately, we're talking early game here of like a Corki, a Janna. Janna's pretty decent early game in terms of poking, but for invades, I would have to tend to disagree a little bit. So I don't think they can fully abuse this Singe Graves combo, unlike Omega Esports did earlier, because I think the draft just doesn't favor it all that much.
Yeah, and again, I think there isn't really... Hard CC wins games, okay, Max? Hard CC wins games, and there is next to none from Nexplay. You've got the Janna Tornado, and you have the Singed Flip, and that's realistically the only CC you have in this composition. I have a feeling that unless you're really far ahead, or you're executing on these team fights perfectly, you're spacing correctly, I have a feeling that you're going to struggle to get any significant advantages, because you're going into Monkey, Wukong, who's got the knock-up. You're going into the Silence from the Garen, the Shockwave from the Orianna, the Braum knock-up, the Braum stun. I'm a little concerned when it comes to full-on teamfight situations. However, something that I think Nexplay could do, something that I think could work for them, is they could go for a kind of split push style composition, which is, you know, you have the Singe pushing one lane, you have Corki pushing the other, and the Janna, Misfortune, and Graves just dealing with mid. That's all. I think he's just dead.
You said it earlier, Scandal. Like, early game Braum is so strong because of that stun potential, because of that frostbite, and then he just hits the stun. He can't move away, even though he did flash. It's a flash and a frag, by the way. So some extra gold coming their way already, and now they're just going to go for the red buff invade, and they're going to snatch it away. No counter invade for the side of Nexplay, so they're just already running with the lead, and it's just been 30 seconds. Hell yeah.
That's, again, yeah, like you said, level 1 Braum is super strong, and they're even going, again, for a red to red here. So this is basically, I like this a lot from Omega. You know, he's not gonna just return to his blue star jungle. What they're doing is they're looking to guarantee a 3 buff start for this Wukong in the jungle. Interestingly, the Braum is not going towards the Jhin. They've lane swapped the Jhin to the top side of the map, but they're leaving Garen and the 2v1 on the bottom side. They're actually rotating the Braum around the jungle with the Wukong. The problem is that the experience share is not going to be particularly strong for the Braum in this scenario, so he's going to fall behind in experience relatively quickly. So we need to get him into a lane. But he's basically a roaming death squad.
Whoa. Oh my god, this rotation. I think the Ignite will still get the frag. Oh, it does, barely, but surely, right in front of the Honey Fruit. That's a feels bad, man. And 2-0 already. The gold lead is up already to a 1.3 to 1.4k. So they already got himself in a really, really good spot. And like this Monkey Braum combo, like they're roaming around the map in so many big ways. Like Monkey strong, Monkey real strong.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously what I think we saw. I think we just saw Bigatron try to do this with the Graves Braum combo, where they would just rotate the Braum around the map with the Wukong. They'd really just look to abuse the strong level 1 and the strong passive of the Braum in the early game and try and get as many roaming kills as physically possible, without Braum ever having to go to lane. That is why they didn't worry too much about the Jhin. They were just like, well, do you know what? Braum's not actually looking to lane the Jhin. Braum is looking to spend the early game rotating with the Wukong and trying getting as many kills as possible. Garen has to be a little careful here. He's trying to clear the wave, but it is a complete fiesta run for the first dragon in the game. Looks like Garen is going to be able to clear that wave out. I think Corki has rotated towards the top side of the map here. And this could be a little scary.
Gonna be a little bit scary.
Yeah,
they're gonna make it out. Nice CC coming out from the Jhin anyways, and because he has that Brawl, we know that Jhin can just remain on the backline and be pretty healthy overall. Nothing too insane going to be happening, but like good trade-off plates on both side lanes. I do have to say, like 2 plates were dropped on top of this. Oh, well, there you go. That's going to be the curtain call coming out from the Jhin. Can he hit it? Nice low coming out. If he can hit it, oh my god, the flash still comes out, even though it's not going to hit. But that's still forcing out a flash for an ultimate, which is going to make it a somewhat even trade-off. But now they're still forcing a wave, despite being low. They are here aiming to push this tower and pick up the first tower of the game, which I think they should be able to do successfully. But they're not going to go anymore. They saw Syndra still there, and they saw also this Corki being really healthy. But like, we're not going to take the risk. We've got 2 plates. We're still heavily ahead in gold.
Yeah, Corki's wave clears too strong with just a single wave to just push up onto that tower. It still had a significant amount of HP left available, and they noticed that the Graves procced the vision cone towards the top side of the map, so they were very aware that there was at least someone threatening a gank in that scenario. So I think it was a sensible decision to move back, but it's still a good start for Omega. That roaming death squad of the Braum and the Wukong in the early game worked out incredibly well, and they've already put Graves behind. Honestly, one of the only advantages of Graves as a jungler is that he farms very quickly. So Graves clears camps very quickly. There is literally no other advantage to Graves in this game other than the fact that he farms relatively quickly. He's a good early duelist for sure, but for the most part, people pick Graves because he clears camps quickly. He's very good at just rotating and clearing his jungle, getting a huge amount of gold purely from jungle creeps, and then comes into the mid game with items, and he's relatively strong. Wukong, much more aggressive, can gank much more effectively, and if you 3-buffer Graves in the early game, you're actually kind of diminishing what Graves is good at. Now, there's going to be a dragon fight, as we said. I favor Omega in this scenario. I think they have the stronger level 5 team fight. It's just about how it gets executed, obviously.
Clean 3-man knockup from the Janna, but now they're getting split away. They can't really take that fight. Nexplay currently have the advantage, and they're going to try and push on forward. If he can get also the push back onto the siege, that would be great. But Corki going a little bit too deep, and he's going to instantly regret that one. Flashing out, does get smited down by the Garen regardless, but that's okay. Ultimate from the Braum. The follow-up is not too possible, though, unfortunately, as they did suffer some pretty big casualties. Sure, I got to say, though, Omega Esports did do kind of a little bit of a throw at the start of that fight, but they killed properly and were able to survive it. But here we go. They're ready to go for the re-engage, and they are pretty low on their side. They're not pretty ready for that one. Good engage from Monkey. You're going to get so much damage. The smite comes on through, will be secured by this Wukong, and now it's just fishing time, picking up kill after kill. But unfortunately, they're getting pretty low themselves. Well, the Small Fortune is still remaining pretty healthy. They lose the Janna. Now it's the 1v3. Can she survive? No. And that is going to be set and done. 8-1. I don't think NXP should have done that, Drake, after that fight. They should have just went back to base. No one was ready. They forced it, and unfortunately, they lost.
Oh, my God, Max. Like, they got an advantage. They forced the split very early on from the Omega squad, but then they just misfortune automated the Drake. I guess they were trying to burst it, but look how impactful that misfortune ultimate would have been if they just saved it for now. like they could have potentially won that team fight, like massively so, if they just saved the misfortune ultimate for what it's supposed to be for. It's not supposed to burst Drakes. I mean, I get it. Look, I do get it. I'm getting angry, but I'm guessing they were just like, okay, we need to use this misfortune ultimate to burst the Drake. We don't want to take the team fight. We think that, we forced the Wukong low enough, but they just got baited by the honey fruit still being available in the bot side. Wukong healed up a little bit, was able to get over the wall. Honestly, that was a win. They split the Wukong off immediately. They forced him out of his own jungle. He was like negligible HP. They could have just backed and said, okay, delaying the game is fine for us because we have a Corki. We have a Graves. We don't need to just run it down for Drake. Delaying this first Drake is more than enough. But alas, it was not the case. They were not able to make it happen, and they were just trying to burst the Drake in a greedy way without really respecting the re-engage potential from Omega, and unfortunately paid the price for it. And again, that fight would have been different if the misfortune had just saved the ultimate for the team fight. If she had just saved it for a situation where she was able to sort of throw it over the river when they were all there on low HP, that could have been a very easy early quadra kill potentially for our misfortune on Uzi. But yeah, it is what it is. It happened, and now they've got to try and recover from it. But they are 5,000 gold down now. That is a big recovery that needs to happen. And again, Omega in the driving seat.
Guys, please call 911. Scoundrel's mad, and I'm scared over here. But I do fully agree there was a little bit of a throw on both sides. It did do kind of a mistake, but at the end, it was still going the way of Omega Esports, and they will gladly take that fight and take the Drake at that. Also, first item now going to be purchased for the Jhin, so he's going to put himself in a pretty strong position. compared to the Miss Fortune that also got our first item, so they're going to be pretty much in an even standoff in terms of itemization. The gold lead already, we're looking at 7,000 gold very soon lead already in favor of Omega Esport, and like in 7.5 minutes, that is still a really significant gold advantage. Now in the bottom lane, we're really going to have a little bit of a push, but like I gotta say, Brawl and Wukong have been bringing so much to the table in their own rotations, also because of the golden staff of the Wukong. It allows to proc that stun of the Frostbite of the Brawl a lot quicker, so it does make sense. They synergize really well to go for those early game ganks. As now Drake is 1 minute away again from spawning. Are we going to have another cluster of absolute mayhem happening in that pit? I guess so. I think that both teams don't really want to give that one up, but we're seeing Nexplay once again falling behind at a point where I'm starting to get a little bit skeptical, and this is a draft that you need to be ahead to make it work properly, so they're falling behind. I'm scared for them, really, once again.
Yeah, I think that this is something that obviously Omega are going to force. They have a strong item spikes. Dave has been highlighting the items that have been picked up by the members. Orianna is on Leandri's Seraphs, which is a really big spike. We have the I think the trying to look with the AD carry. What is the gym pick up? The Infinity Edge Ghostblade, I think that he's got as well, which is a pretty significant spike for him. They're actually going to back and just go and pick up as much as they can before this next Dragon fight. They are confident that they can head back towards that pit and be in a strong position to fight. And I think it's easy for them. I think this is again a strong position to be in. I would almost be tempted to drop the Rift Herald if you haven't already for the Wukong. Either drop it mid or drop it bot to provide a distraction, because that will set up nicely for the start. You can see they're pushing the wave. I think Wukong's, he's just going to drop it mid. They're going to try and force this mid lane tower, which would at least set up a good space for the next dragon. And there's a flip in from it's the clone.
Yeah, it was the clone. I was like, wait a minute, that's a good player. It's like, no, it's the clone. I got bamboozled too, and that is okay. But now, because of that push, they're not fully ready to go for the fight, and they're just going to also keep the Garen on the front line with the Orianna to bring some CC to the table if they want to make sure they're not going to go for it. They're going straight back into the top side of the lane because they know they just can't contest that Drake, and they don't want to give it a shot. They know they're way too far behind, so no big throws on Nexplay. But what are they going to try and do here? They're going into the jungle during that time. JLC smart. He's going pretty deep on that one, but unfortunately, they shall not find any frags by doing that rotation. But NXP, I don't know what the plan was with that rotation. I'm a little bit skeptical here.
Yeah, I think they just got caught out a little bit. I think they were looking to essentially go towards top, try and take the top lane turret for free, but there was a very, very quick and decisive move from Omega to move into the mid lane, knowing they've split the composition up of Nexplay, and they take the mid lane tier 2. Another chunk of gold in their back pocket as the Baron spawns. We are 10,000 gold in the lead for Omega. They really seem to have cracked the code to deal with Omega. Omega just not drafting strong early game team fight compositions, getting caught out around the dragon. It wasn't even that far apart. I mean, Nexplay initially had the advantage when it came to that first dragon, but as I said, there was a little bit of a misplay around the use of some of the ultimates when they went for the re-engage. And now that the Baron is on the table with a 10k gold lead, you've got to be aware that it is going to be Omega looking to either force that and pressure out the Baron as the next objective, because that will allow them to crack the base and potentially even take this game.
Yeah, we were talking about this during the break. We were mentioning, like, these games so far have been whichever team wins the first Drake fight, like, they steamroll the entire game. And it's been really something that's been happening on a really regular basis. So I think that here you got to try and find a strategy to get back into the game. And I think that, unfortunately, 10,000 gold has been just so consistently coming the way as a gold lead for Omega Esport. And 10,000 gold lead is not something you can easily come back from. So, like, it's starting to get to the point where I want to tell to the side of Omega, just go in like settings, surrender button, click on it, and you might be good to go. But at the end, NXP gonna get pushed up, and they can't do much. They're getting split away from each other once more. As Wukong is just going to be shoving that wave under tower a little bit, try and create a little bit of point of pressure. And during that time, they're seeing that they're not ready to fight. They might just go for Baron, so it's somewhat or force the fight coming their way. And if they don't force the fight, they're going to have a free Baron, easy.
I think, realistically, Baron is always a little scary against the likes of a Corki with package, or, and a Misfortune as well. But they get it so quickly with the Leandris, the fight breaking out now as well on the front line, and not looking good for Nexplay in this game right now.
That was 5v2 initially versus Singed and the Brawl, and they're just like, we just can't do any damage. Like, Brawl is just frontlining too damn good. Orianna does pop the Shockwave, I do believe. Unfortunately, will not be able to catch off guard this Corki. So a little bit of a waste of that utility, and that CC will not be connecting, but that's okay. They're so far ahead, it doesn't even really matter all that much. Just trying to look for it, and the push in top lane, the wave is coming on through. They're trying to starve them away from the tower. Unfortunately, Corki, a little bit too far. Yeah, you have to jump away from that one. You scared me quite a bit. And even the mid lane turret is going to get cracked open, potentially with the next wave coming on through very, very soon. But like the map control, the map awareness, and also how they control these lanes respectively, just so strong from Omega Esports, and Nexplay just can't find a strong response here. Although, going to get
I really
shot
love
back.
that.
Warm, unfortunate bad spot. He's going to be going for the ultimate too. Unfortunately, the CC gets right before dying. It's potentially not going to be enough. Nice though curtain call from this Jhin. Just going to get some extra damage, but it's still at the end of the day. They lose the mid tower. They're going to get the natural push power in mid every time. And here, Scandal, this is looking like another easy win for the side of Omega.
Yeah, and with Infernal Drake spawning relatively soon as well, it's another big fight that unfortunately Nexplay can't avoid. And if they do, they are just giving up more power to the team that is already in the driving seat. I was going to mention I love the Garen's build, by the way. He's gone for the essentially Sunfire into Adaptive Helm. Adaptive Helm is super strong versus the Nexplay composition because Corki deals 80% magic damage, and most of that comes from his basic attacks. Adaptive Helm is effective against Corki's basic attacks because they are 80% magic damage, and it is doubly effective against Singed because the majority of his damage comes through a consistent poison. So you're essentially getting 15% damage reduction at maximum versus both Singed and Corki, making you an extremely beefy frontliner on this Garen. Intelligent itemization by JLC in the top lane means that he's incredibly difficult to burst through, and that's why you're seeing him sit there at the front while the team takes these objectives. Is what he did around the Baron pit as well, because he knows he's so hard to kill with this item already picked up for him. So again, JLC with some sort of big brain tank plays here, which is allowing his team to have a much more solid front line. You can see Chuli just out of position. We have the engage.
But there's even nothing to say. It's just like great engage overall. They're going to have the Garen go pretty deep into that one, but he's just so beefy, he can allow to tank it, and indeed the build is looking so strong for him. He's going to be tanking that turret like it's nothing. He feels like an Alistar at this point, and now they crack open the base early in the mid lane. This Nexus is bare, and unfortunately for them, I think this is going to be another easy win coming on through for Omega Esports. The wave is there to back them up. The damage coming on through. Corki's going to go pretty deep over that one, maybe try and get the back line, but unfortunately gets absolutely bursted to smithereens, and indeed it is going to be the win, 3-1 in favor of Omega Esports. And Nexplay, they just can't do anything. 3-1, one more game, and we will be having our Wild Rift Asia Brawl champions in the form of Omega Esports. But one game is still required, and Nexplay, we know when they're not going to give it up, baby. They're not going to give it up.
They're not giving it up, of course. I mean, unfortunately, you're seeing the other side of the coin when it comes to the Singed. If you do not get ahead, if you do not get any kind of advantage, you just become kind of useless. And versus hard CC especially, Singed is especially weak. So Brawl, Orianna, the Wukong, all of those champions are particularly good into Singed because hard CC is one of his major counters. Like if you can't allow him to just run freely around the team fight, you can't actually deal any damage. So that's the problem when you're facing against the Singed, clearly. But again, as I said, Max, I think we've been able to predict the majority of these games straight up from draft. We both said that we preferred the Omega comp coming into this. We didn't really feel like there was much cohesion for the Nexplay composition. There was no way to synergize with the Misfortune to bullet time. And honestly, I just think this is a bit of a draft diffy. I don't really think that Nexplay gave themselves the best fighting chance in the draft outset because again, wasn't much synergy. I would have preferred a Malphite. Malphite would have been a legitimate top lane pick here. You know, you can go tanky. You can set up for the Malphite ultimate into the Misfortune ultimate. And I just don't really think the Nexplay composition worked that well. And you kind of saw it in action. However, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Max. That dragon fight they could have won and should have won. Honestly, I think they could have even taken that advantage if they'd just been a little smarter about the way they played the second re-engage. Because it was close. Like there were low HP bars all over the place on Omega. That Misfortune ultimate, I think, will haunt them a little bit. I really do. I think that Misfortune ultimate will haunt them because that essentially snowballed the game well in favor of Omega.